I see too many kids struggling to enjoy fitness and connect with friends. I'm Coach Jason, and I was one of those kids, right? And that's why I created adaptive movement, and that's why I created live action fitness. So, adaptive movement, that's my personal private practice here in Northwest DC, where I offer adaptive personal training sessions for kids. Live action fitness, that is a new kind of role playing game that combines personal training and Dungeons and Dragons. So, live action fitness is a game that all of us can play. Like I say, you don't need to play sports to have a coach.
Right.
Okay.
So
I'll show you how to play live action fitness and make fitness fun for kids.
awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about what Dungeons and Dragons is for somebody who might not know right off the bat? Maybe they know they've heard of it, but don't know what it is.
Absolutely. So it's an incredibly immersive game of imagination. So you've got me, I'll be the game master. I'm narrating and I'm the referee, showing you the world that we're going to be playing in. Let's say you are one of my players, right? So you could pretend like your kid would be in the game. You actually start out by creating your own character from scratch. So you
Cool.
get to decide what type of hero you want to be. Do you want to be more like a big, strong barbarian who slays monsters? Or do you want to be, more like Harry Potter who uses magic? Do you want to be more like the spy who's kind of sneaky and kind of clever? So you're creating your own character from scratch that you get to play as in the game.
Very
I
good.
show you the whole world. I show you the map, where we're going to be starting out, what kind of scenarios we're going through. But you're not just a spectator, you're the one who's in the game, right? You're on the stage. You're actually going to get to take action, make decisions, see how you're going to handle this kind of scenario that I throw your way. So that's what the heart of the role playing game is.
Awesome. So you use that intertwined with fitness to make fitness fun for kids.
Exactly. Exactly. So you start out, you build your character, you start earning money. You might have some special items that you get, right? Whether it's the sword that you start with, Harry Potter had a wand.
Mhm.
All right. What would you have?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to get into that a little bit later. We'll be actually having you kind of go through the character creation process so that you can see what it's like.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome.
So we'll get into that next time. I'll show you also our world map. We'll show you the setting that we're playing in, how things kick off, and just get the adventure started.
Awesome.
So,
It sounds like a lot of fun. Even
yeah,
if you're an adult.
exactly. So, an entirely new kind of role-playing game. And unlike Dungeons and Dragons, this is built from scratch. It's streamlined, it's easy to play, easy to get started, especially for kids, right? This kind of game, it's for kids 10 and up. Work with preteens in one age group, and then we have the teenagers as a separate age group. And the game just gets more engaging and more immersive the older you get, right?
Awesome.
So you can play it as an adult, absolutely, and that's what I do as well. This is just something that's accessible for kids. It's easier to play, even more so than Dungeons and Dragons itself, where you see you've got these giant books, there's tons of rules, there's structure and how your magic works and how your character works and leveling up. It gets really kind of complicated and difficult. And this is just, you're ready to go. You're right in the adventure from the beginning.
Cool.
Okay.
And so
So
as a child develops and their imagination continues to develop, they get more immersed in this game and they're able to kind of grow with it, which is really neat. And it's exciting because it's imagination, but then they can continue to go deeper as they get older and their brain kind of allows them to.
exactly right. Exactly right. It's an experience, right? So you get to go on these adventures and have the experience. It's not a video game. It's something that we're doing together, right? Playing pretend, using miniatures, getting out the whiteboard, fighting monsters, going through combat scenarios, going through what we call social encounters, which is where you got to negotiate your way through some sort of scenario. Maybe you're going to go shopping at the marketplace, or maybe you have to go talk to the king about something important or
Good.
negotiate some sort of truce between these two warring factions, all sorts of
That's awesome.
stuff. Yeah, going
That's
through the adventure. And
that's
then you get more experience, you level up,
right.
right?
Right.
So you're getting richer, you're getting stronger items, you're getting more magic powers and stuff like
Right.
that as you go along. So you're just having fun and you're in the game,
Nice.
right?
Yeah. Awesome.
Exactly.
So
So
what
there's no like winning and losing. That's the other thing, right? It's
yeah.
not like most typical team sports. You're like, oh God, I win, I lose. There's a lot of pressure, and especially like in high school,
Mm,
it gets even more difficult. You know, the gap between like the athletes and the non-athletes just kind of widens, right?
right.
But this is something collaborative that we can do together.
So it's that true teamwork. And then you're more so competing against yourself.
Exactly.
You're
Exactly.
building onto your own character, and as you progress and as you, I guess, learn and go through these experiences, you build upon the last experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Every session counts, every experience counts. And, you know, of course, when you're on the younger side, you're mostly, you know, you're a little more focused on yourself naturally. Kids are a
Right.
little bit more like in their own world, you
Mhm.
know, and
Yeah.
then you start growing up, you become a teenager, an adolescent, and now you start thinking more about other people. You know, what if I was in their shoes? Or how is this going to look? How is this going to play out? You can do more socially, you have more social skills, you can
Okay.
think in a more abstract way, so you can create deeper plans
Mhm.
for your character and also part of your backstory, which is
Nice.
something that we're going to get into. So in
Cool.
the beginning, you're just deciding what kind of character do you want to play, the warrior, maybe a rogue who's that spy or kind of clever guy, or maybe you're some sort of magic user from a wizard to a sorcerer to a druid or a cleric. It goes on and on. We're going to dig into all that later. So in the beginning, it's like, well, what type of guy do I want to be? What kind of powers do I get? And then as you go on, you're also taking notes and you're building, literally building character, right? That's something I like to say. Nothing builds character like building your character.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got a notebook, right? We might have character building questions, right? Tell me about your backstory. Tell me where you come from. Tell me what your goals are, right? What is your desire? What's something that's important to you? And that enriches the character that you're playing in the game.
Yeah, I guess it fuels just like our own character and experiences and values and goals all help develop our character. It's going to help them build that foundation of a character, of a person, of what they value. They'll understand that in a childlike way, which is pretty neat. So,
Yeah, exactly. It's incredible because you start to think about your self image.
yeah,
It changes how you see yourself, it changes how you feel about yourself, right? Nobody wants to create a character who's super weak and shy and awkward. You create this character and you realize I don't have to be who I used to be,
right,
right? This is a fresh start. And that's where you get radical changes when it comes to your attitude with fitness, your ability to connect with friends. It's because you're entering a whole new world as a whole new character. So
right.
it's a fresh start for all of these kids.
Yeah, yeah, and you get to see the ability to change certain traits. You get to realize that you have the control to be this or to be that, and it is as easy as developing a imaginary character to do it within ourselves as well.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you've got your imaginary character, and maybe you want to learn a new special ability. Maybe there's some sort of you want to learn some sort of special attack that you could use when you're fighting monsters. Well, how are you going to do that? Okay, well, I want to learn some new abilities. I need some practice. I need to do some training. I need to get some sort of experience
Mhm.
that lets me level up and get this new ability to sort of unlock, right, your new skills. So you
Right.
go on some sort of mission, you find some sort of mentor, just like Luke Skywalker had to go find Yoda. And now, wait, hang on. I'm taking myself to that next level. I have
Yep.
someone who's guiding me, someone who's helping me understand who I am and where I want to go. So you get a
Right.
much clearer picture of what your goals are. So these kids, when you put them in the game, all of a sudden they know exactly what they want to do. They know who they want to be. They're getting things done. Where in
Right.
real life, that's just like, oh, it's like pulling teeth. It's such a
Right.
struggle, like, oh, you're not the boss of me. Like, kids are
Yeah.
so resistant. Now, with live action fitness, we're all playing a game together. We're
Right.
all having fun together. So it completely bypasses all of the resistance.
In the end, they want to see their character succeed. And I know as a parent, we know the end goal for our child. Like we want to see them succeed, but they don't always see our reasoning behind it. So this allows them to see that reasoning behind it. Therefore, maybe I need to do it for a good reason or that type of
Mhm.
thing. And it's
Exactly. Yeah.
really
So they
cool.
understand more about the bigger picture because anytime you're playing one of these games, one of these role playing games, and every kid understands this because a lot of video games are based on what we're talking about right now,
Mhm.
right? Everything
Right.
from Minecraft to Zelda and on it goes. Anytime you're playing the main character and you run around doing stuff, right, where you're getting experience and leveling up, it's based on the kind of game that we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
And all
Yeah.
the kids, they intuitively understand, well, I start out, I'm level 1.
Right.
Oh, well, what's next, right? Level 2. So
Yeah.
they understand that they can become more than they are.
It's awesome.
That's the big thing. All
Well,
right?
and the working towards the goal. Like, and I
Mhm.
know it's like again, I guess it goes back to that big picture. And we had chatted about it last week when we talked, and it was such a mind-blowing concept to me as a parent. I wouldn't have thought about the steps in between to getting to that goal. And it was funny because my son had a challenge, and I was like, "Oh, I was just talking to Coach Jason about this." And he said, "This is how they use it in that here's your goal. What are the steps to get there?" And it totally works.
Yeah, yeah.
Like my son was struggling with something and I said, "Okay, this is the end goal. This is where you want to be. Now let's backtrack it. Let's figure out what the steps in between are that we need to do in order to make that happen." Sure enough, like it broke it down in ways that he understood and was able to accomplish his goal. And I like
Yeah.
it, it is that simple, but at the same time, we don't always think it's that simple and we overcomplicate it. So
Mhm.
to put it in that for a child is really awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's so fun and exciting because and we're going to go over all the tips and tricks about how to play, make sure all the sessions run smoothly, all of that stuff. We're going to be giving it all the way for everybody to know. And, these kids, you're giving them these scenarios and there's some sort of problem, and then they become problem solvers.
Mhm.
They realize, like, wait a minute, I want to get this done. I'm leveling up. I'm getting more experience. After I defeat this bad guy, I'm going to be stronger. I'm going to be able to, take their magic sword and that'll be mine now. It's a
Yeah.
power up,
Yeah.
right? So it's quite literally empowering for all of these kids and it helps them take initiative and learn how to get things done.
In
That's
real
one of the
life
most important
problems.
powerful.
Yeah. In real life challenges in
Exactly.
their
Exactly.
everyday.
You see things differently now. In real life in the game, it all kind of blurs together because you're still just one person, having this experience. Your
Right.
experiences in the game translate to real life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
that's just part of the magic. That's what Dungeons and Dragons is all about. That's what live action fitness is all about. All of these fall under the umbrella term role playing game. Just to make it crystal clear, you get to create your character, you get to play the role that you want to play, and you get to make your own choices. So
Yeah.
these kids are learning how to make their own choices, how to go with the flow when there are consequences, when things don't always go their way.
Yeah. How to
That's
set
life.
goals, how to solve problems, just real life character traits that are important to have, which is awesome.
It,
So how did you do this? How did you come up with this brilliant idea? Like, where did it stem from?
Okay. Well, that's great. This is what I wanted to talk about next, right? This is where a lot of people ask me that. They want to know, Coach Jason, what's your backstory? How on earth did you do this? Where's this all coming from? So I'll tell you a little bit about my story here and
Okay,
how this came to be. So I was actually born in Connecticut in
cool.
1987. And I was a very shy kid. I struggled to make friends. I really didn't enjoy typical team sports. It was a challenge for me. And it was not a physical fitness challenge. It was more of a social challenge, you know. I didn't realize at the time that I'm neurodivergent, actually, right? It's a wide spectrum, and
Yeah,
I'm on the autism spectrum. I didn't really know it at the time. I still, it's part of why I really love to talk a lot. I have a lot of energy, I have a lot of excitement. And so that's a little bit about me. And this is basically what I needed when I was growing up,
yeah,
right? I needed something. So
awesome.
I found Dungeons and Dragons when I remember clear as day. Buddy of mine moved in next door, showed me Dungeons and Dragons, opened up a whole new world. It was a father son traveling. They were in a military family. And, this kid, he was great. He had all the social skills. He knew how to make friends. He was great. And he was used to that,
Right,
moving
right.
around, introducing himself and just connecting with people. I was not like that. I struggled. But he
I wasn't
introduced
like that,
me.
so
Yeah, he introduced me to this world, and it's just incredible. You're like, oh my God, you are really there, and you can really decide to go where you want and do what you want to do. And
awesome.
everything you're saying, you're role playing. So it's just completely immersive and just mind blowing, opening up this whole new world. And it's an adventure,
That's
So we were
awesome.
going on these adventures together. You just need one person who's able to run the game,
Yeah.
right? This is someone who's called the game master. This is what I
Right?
generally do. And then you just need at least one person who's a player, right? And in my version, I do up to 4 players as
Okay.
a full group. Other
Okay.
people might have larger groups. I find it best with a maximum of 4 players because then you also have the game master as your 5th player.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, yep.
So that was Dungeons and Dragons. Then later on, when I grew up, I actually ended up going to George Mason University.
Cool.
I studied psychology, studied child development, had a blast there. When
Mhm.
I was in college, my next big step was when I discovered Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
Mm,
That was another new world for me. That was just
right.
incredible. It made me feel better. It was grounding. I had coaches. It's not a typical team sport, you're training, you're doing martial arts, right? So
Right,
it's one
right,
on one. It's competitive, but it's not a typical team sport. It's
right.
totally different,
Well,
right?
you're
So
competing
even when
against
you're
yourself.
sparring, you're competing against
Yeah,
yourself. It's just
yeah,
all about seeing yourself as someone who can level up by learning new skills.
yeah,
So with martial arts, it's all about practice and learning new skills and leveling up. It's your own development.
yeah.
So
Mastery and yep,
mastery.
yep.
Yes,
And
exactly.
confidence even too. Like there's a lot of that self awareness and those life skills that are taught in it as well through it.
Exactly, exactly. And so with Dungeons and Dragons and with martial arts, you do have adversity. You do have challenges that you're overcoming. And that's where these experience points, as we call them in the game, come from,
Cool.
right? As you're leveling up, the point is that you have experiences that are challenging enough so that when you overcome the challenge, you actually have leveled up. You actually have learned something. You've done something that's difficult,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Such
yeah.
as, fighting this other guy who's across the
Hmm.
wrestling ring from you or whatever it is, or slaying dragons and goblins and rescuing princesses. The
Right.
challenges are real, but it doesn't have to be, like a game day with soccer It's like the
You're not
team
just
is going to win or lose,
right.
right?
You're
So
not
then you
just
come
beating
home.
another team, you're actually developing a skill.
Yes, exactly. So you see yourself developing that skill. So you're on your own journey. That's the ultimate thing. So it really just helps you see yourself on your own journey with your own experiences, leveling up. So even if you lose this game, even if you lose this encounter, it's not the end of the world,
Right, right.
right? Because
You
you've
just
learned.
need more practice.
Exactly. So you're gaining experience that way. So
Awesome.
that was really just absolutely life changing for me, especially for physical fitness. And it's really grounding. That's the other
Yeah.
thing. You know how a lot of the kids, especially kids, on the spectrum or with ADHD and in general, kids, for example, they'll feel better with a weighted blanket, something that's calming, something that's comforting. It's giving you this input, it's giving you this pressure. And believe it or not, actually, even martial arts gave me that from wrestling. You feel this kind of pressure and you're physically engaged
Mm-hmm.
and you feel better. It's
Yeah,
grounding.
very
Same
much.
thing happens with weightlifting. When you start using your core, you start using your muscles, you feel so much better. And
Hit
so,
boundaries, and
mhm.
those types of things put boundaries on our muscles, on like as a weight almost in a physical weight to allow us to push through.
Yeah, exactly. If there's nothing to push against, it actually feels uncomfortable. You sort of feel like you're floating in space and you don't have any grounding, you don't feel any boundary, you don't feel any support, and anything could happen. So for a lot of kids, they struggle, like if they're something as simple as they're sitting down and their feet are dangling off the floor, they'll feel a little less connected. They're less grounded. And
Yep.
so these boundaries and even like physical fitness, like the grounding you get from your core strength and your muscles there, help you feel better, help you stay calm, feel more regulated. All right.
Connected, yeah.
Exactly. It's the connection. That
Yeah.
that's really what it comes down to over and over again. That'll be the big theme. Connection to yourself, connection to your family, connection to nature, connection to your gut,
Yeah.
connection and disconnection. That's the big challenge
Yeah.
that a lot of the kids these days are facing. We're just
Right.
totally isolated and disconnected.
Right.
So that's a big part of what we get with live action fitness. We get the connection.
That's cool.
So,
I was not a social butterfly, still am not, and found myself getting into different adventures. And I didn't know about Dungeons and Dragons growing up, but I feel like if I did, I definitely would have. But as a parent, too, that makes so much sense. Like, I have a couple boys, and watching them learn to regulate themselves, and they're both, actually all three of them are in martial arts, and seeing the grounding and the connection and the skill where it's them versus them, like it's themselves versus
mm,
themselves, and that leveling up has played such a big part on their confidence and their leadership and just themselves as a person, their development as they've built their character,
exactly.
their character as
Exactly.
in themselves.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. You're building character in the game and
Yep.
in real life, and it's all mental, right?
Yep.
Even though you're obviously there's a physical world, there's physical fitness. What you're experiencing is all in the mind
Yeah.
and how you see yourself, you feel yourself as confident, you feel you are a confident person, you see yourself as a confident person. And that's where a lot of the kids struggle, like I don't see myself as a soccer player. I don't see myself keeping up on the playground. And then it really starts to get into your head with a negative self image,
Right.
right?
Right.
I know kids who have they just had a bad experience in gym class and that's it. They
Oh
hate
yeah.
it. Oh, I'm done. I'm done. I hate this. I don't want to do this. You can't make me. I don't want to go back. I'm not going to be happy. Even if you do make me do it, I'm going to resist and I'm going to hate you for it. I'm going to resent you for it. That's a big problem,
The
right?
pressure, like it's such a negative pressure I feel like sports puts on us. And I like sports. I've
Mhm.
played sports. So I'm not anti sports, but developmentally, it's either I'm good at it or I'm bad at it. And if I'm not good
Mhm.
at it, then I'm not good. Like then it starts playing with your head and why can't I be better?
Mhm.
And you either learn to love it or hate it, and it turns inward to
Yeah,
not good enough.
exactly.
I can't do this. What's wrong with me? Whereas with what you're doing, it's all about building the skill.
Yeah,
It's not about I'm good or bad. It's all right, this is a challenge. How can I get better?
exactly
How
right.
can I overcome it? How can I work through it? And it it's just such a total different mindset shift there, which is awesome.
Exactly right. Total mindset shift, you know, and we'll get into this when we talk more about goals and different types of goals. You know, people, especially when you get older with sports, you know, like we were saying, it gets more competitive. It's more based on the outcome. Did the ball go in the basket? Did
Right.
you get into the end zone? Like that's
Right.
what we're looking for. That's what we need. What we're doing, it's about your skill development, your skill acquisition. You're learning through these experiences and it's ongoing. It's an ongoing journey.
That's awesome.
So totally different way of getting things done and helping these kids kind of view themselves, you know, as the man in the arena. So,
So when it comes back, so you've shared your story and,
mhm.
kind of why you developed it for your own personal adventure and experience. Why do you continue to help kids do that? Like, is it just based off of your own personal experience, or do you have like a deeper connection to the game, to what you do?
Well, for all of us, it's fun and it's exciting. It's just that engaging. It's what
Yeah,
we want to do.
yeah,
So that's where instead of, you know, a lot of parents, they're trying like, how do I get my kid to do this or get my kid to do that? You don't have to. We want to do it. That's the difference. So we're playing the game because we want to play the game. And that's what makes playing so special. That's why play in general is incredibly important for all kids and for all people, right? Especially that rough
yeah.
and tumble play,
Mhm.
different levels of play, using your imagination. So, you know, it starts out like you've got a, you know, maybe you have a toy car, you're
Mhm.
playing with the cars, then maybe it's a block, you're pretending that it's a car, and then maybe it's a car, you're playing pretend and there's nothing there, right? So your play skills just develop as your mind develops, as your ability to create a vision in your mind gets more clear. You have clarity on your vision, what your goals are, like what is the image? My kid is happy, my kid is outside, they're running, they're playing with their friends, they're smiling, they're building their strength.
Mhm.
And so you get a greater clarity on your image in your mind's eye. And also, it's something that is so exciting.
Right.
Okay, this is something you deeply care about,
Yeah.
right? So when, you know, when you're on the live action fitness adventure, man, it really does matter what happens to your character.
Right.
All right. It matters, right? You don't want to die. Oh my God. This is a close call. All hope is lost. Oh,
Right. Right.
oh
Right.
no. What are we going to do? Oh, this is a conundrum. Or wait a minute. We're having our moment of triumph, you know? And so it's just viscerally like you feel it in your gut,
Right.
you know, you're on this mission. You have this goal. And so this is just a part of my mission. This is a part of my goal. So I will just never stop doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, a few more things with my journey, you know, after graduating high school, going to college, discovering jujitsu,
Mhm.
I was doing that. I was doing my own training that ended up also evolving into wrestling and judo. I love all submission grappling arts. That's a great way to train. I recommend that for kids. Now you can really start sparring and fight your heart out. And also, you don't have to worry about being punched in the face or something
Right.
crazy like that, which gets different as you're growing up, doing
Yep.
different types of martial arts. So you can really put your heart and soul into it when you're wrestling. Leave it all on
Yeah.
the mat, come back the next day. So after that, I started working with kids with special needs,
Mhm.
right? That's when I really got my first bit of experience right after graduating college is 2010. I remember clear as day, the very first kid with special needs that I ever worked with. And I was going house to house, did that for a long time, working directly with the kids. You're in the trenches. That's where you're really learning. Talk
Yeah.
about gaining experience. Oh my goodness. All right. You're in it. Okay. For all the good and all the bad. But I mean,
Yeah.
you're definitely learning. So that was where
Yeah.
I was learning the skills, gaining the experience. So I would go house to house, working with these families. Then one of the families I worked with, they actually ended up building a team. That's when I discovered it was called ABA, which is a type of behavior therapy that is frequently, it's got different uses, frequently used for kids with special needs and for kids with autism when they have behavioral challenges. That's a whole nother discussion. But
Yeah.
that's what I jumped into next. And then I ended up working in a couple of private special needs schools. I gained a lot of experience. So
Yeah.
then you're working with tons of different kids. You see tons of different scenarios. That's what really gives you the expertise and the experience. You're working with so many different kids with different challenges, with different goals, and you're helping all of those kids meet their personal goals. You're there to support them.
And when you say working with them, what do you mean? Did you do working fitness, working just educationally?
Okay, great question. So there's two main sides to this.
Okay.
Okay. So first is you're helping to reduce problem behaviors,
Okay.
right? And there's a difference between, we're not saying that the children are the problem. We're talking about challenging behaviors, bad habits. We're
Right.
talking about tantrums and meltdowns. We're talking about aggression. We're talking about kids are, they're going to break the pencil. They're going to flip the desk. I've seen a lot of really challenging behavior,
Yeah, yeah. I bet.
right? Aggression to other people, self-injury, all
Yeah.
sorts of really challenging scenarios, emotional dysregulation, right? They end up you get stressed. You have like an outburst, right? You flip your lid. That's what we would just kind of generally call it. But these kids, sometimes you get into these bad habits and they've learned, maybe I flip my lid and this is what's going to get me out of all these homework assignments, or it's going to get me out of bath time, right? Or maybe it's going to get me, maybe I want something, right? Like a little more time on my iPad, or I want this, I want my ice cream for dessert. There's all sorts of drivers of behavior, or what we call functions of behavior. So we started learning about that. So the first half is that you're helping them kind of avoid and replace these problem behaviors, right? So for a lot of kids on the spectrum, they have a hard time using their words.
Right.
So we're literally giving them words, giving them communication devices at some point. Nowadays that's very commonly done on the iPad. We've also done old school stuff, which involves, pieces of Velcro and words and letters and like pictures,
Mhm.
something called picture exchange communication system. There's all sorts of
Cool.
jargon. I'm going to
Yeah.
minimize the jargon. So for example, if some kid is used to kind of throwing a temper tantrum, you teach that student how to use your words to ask for a break, to ask for more time. What is it that you need? You're helping the kids communicate. And so they don't need to have these tantrums. That's
Right.
just an
Right.
easy example,
Right.
right? And
That's
so that's just a quick example of the kind of stuff that you'd be teaching.
cool.
And then, it also just comes with skill acquisition. So again, this is the foundation here. This is where I really learned how to help kids build their skills.
Yeah.
So that includes academic skills, right? They're learning, everything from, what the colors are,
Yeah.
what the animal sounds are, and then it obviously gets more advanced when you get older, but just learning your academic skills, learning your social skills, communication skills. And
Right.
so we teach that. We have goals for these kids, and you're helping the kids do what they need to do, and then you're providing the reinforcement so that it sticks.
Yeah.
right? So we've got reward systems and all this stuff. So that's something we're going to be digging into when it comes to our healthy habits workshop,
Yeah.
right? So you're teaching these kids new skills, helping them see what they need to learn, and then you've got a reward system.
Very cool.
So that's where, right, working in these private schools and going house to house, that's where I got my foundation for teaching kids healthy habits,
That's awesome. So it
right?
goes so much deeper. I didn't realize you had this much of a background in child development. So it's really neat that, because I know fitness and martial arts and even just working with kids teaches you a lot of these things on a very basic level, but that you have such a foundation and experience in really hands in working with these kids, like that just adds so much more to your program. That
100%.
like you
Exactly.
really understand the full developmental impact that you're making, that you have the ability to make, and then how to work it so that you can really have a great impact on these children. That is really cool.
Exactly right. And each kid gets an individualized program. That was the other thing that we do, right? Just like you've probably heard of an individualized education plan, an IEP.
Yep.
In the schools that I worked at, every kid has an IEP. So we take an individualized approach. You have your own habits, you have your own preferences, your own reward system, right?
Yep.
So we develop that program for skill building on
Yeah.
an individual basis.
Very
Okay.
cool.
Now that's different. Like most of the programs, all of the typical team sports, all of the yoga programs, the martial arts programs, I love them too. Dance programs, whatever it is, generally you've got some sort of class, some sort of practice, some sort of class where the kids are enrolled, they show up, and there's a curriculum.
Mhm.
And generally, the instructor, even if they're giving you some accommodations, maybe they're giving you some special attention, they understand, they're being a little extra patient, they're still broadly teaching this class curriculum. They've already decided what we're going to do today in class, and whoever shows up for class shows up for class. This is the game plan. Okay. What I do is build every game plan, every session plan from scratch based on who is there. So the kids are all signed up in advance. And
Yeah.
of course, that's easy when it's one on one. And like I said, my small group sessions, we go up to 4 kids, but
Yeah.
everything we're doing is individualized. That is another big secret to my success.
That's really impactful when it comes to these kids.
So now I went from, in the private school, we're working on, more academic skills. And then I started adaptive movement, right? So eventually, working in the school system, I'll tell you, it's frustrating.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh my God. I'm going to tell you right now.
yeah.
Okay. It's
My
difficult.
yeah,
There
my
is no,
yeah.
show me one person in the world who disagrees with that. I dare you. Okay. So whether you're in public schools, you're in private schools, it's frustrating for all sorts of reasons and it's difficult.
Yeah.
One of the things I noticed though, before starting my own program, I was just more naturally physically active than a lot of
Right.
the other teachers. I'm a physically active guy. I feel better, moving around. I would, you know, when working on these lessons with these kids, I might take them for a walk. Let's go walk outside, go around the building. All right. Then we'll come back. Then we'll work on your colors program. Then we'll work on whatever skill you need to learn.
Yeah.
Okay. And the kids would do better. They would feel better. They would be more comfortable. Major reduction in their dysregulation, right?
Oh,
They would just feel better, do better, behaviorally and academically. So I was
oh
like,
yeah.
wow, the physical fitness component, it's really lacking. It's really lacking because not only it's not prioritized for one thing,
Right.
and then there just aren't a lot of people, a lot of teachers who are focused on it. They
Right.
don't
Right.
always use that, and
Yeah.
this gives you a lot of leverage, right? So you can use movement to help these kids build their skills even at school.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a quick book recommendation called Spark by John Rady. And that's a book that actually goes through case studies and shows you everything, including the neuroscience about how physical fitness helps you with your academics. It
I
helps you with your school performance a
100% believe it.
ton.
One of the reasons why we pulled my oldest son out of public school and we're homeschooling him because the teacher wanted him to be put on ADHD medicines. And I was like, no, the kid just needs to get up and move a little bit. And so we've added movement breaks into his day, and he's doing fantastic and can focus when he needs to.
Yeah.
But he needed the movement, he needed the change of scenery, and it makes such a big difference in their lives.
Yeah,
Academic,
absolutely.
all of it, like behavioral, I mean, all of it, all of it. It's made a massive difference.
And that was me. That was me as a kid as well. You know, that's when everybody started getting put on Ritalin. Nowadays we have Adderall,
Yep,
right? They're
yep,
inventing new medications all the time. It is completely unnatural for a whole group of kids to just sit at the desk and listen to the teacher, just be quiet, raise your
yep,
hand, follow directions. It's completely unnatural.
yep,
And it's really a way to train kids. If you look into it, you know, there are two things. You're training kids to be factory workers
yep,
who
yep,
they go on the bell,
yep. And they
right? It's like
touch
a
clock.
factory whistle.
Yep,
And then also obedient soldiers.
yep,
Right? So you're going to listen to the teacher who's going from the top down and you're there, right? Be
yep,
quiet and be still.
yep.
Don't be disruptive and just, right? That's what made me leave the school system and start my own program,
That's awesome.
right? So now we're just building different skills. We're just
Yeah,
focusing on different habits, but it's just all about helping to shape the habits for these kids and these teenagers. Okay, so you need to know what their goals are, how to get them to achieve the goal, create the reward system. So instead of just focusing on academics, we actually focus on our movement skills, our balance skills. We're playing games and having fun. We're training. So there's a zillion ways when it comes to movement and physical fitness, but those are the skills that are important. And then it builds your confidence, right?
right.
As you're gaining skills, on that subconscious level, you see yourself like, well, hey,
Yeah,
I'm a lot better at that than I used to be. Wow, that used to be really tough. And like, now I'm getting the hang of this. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good. Okay. So you just naturally build confidence. You can't
yeah,
just tell kids how to feel or what to do.
right.
This flips the script. So now that
Yeah,
gets us to the last piece. So I started my adaptive personal training program. I was making fitness accessible for kids of all abilities. So I had that special needs background, so I could work with kids who needed that one-on-one,
right.
work with kids who maybe they have some behavioral challenges, maybe they need some extra support.
Mhm.
That's what I was doing at Adaptive Movement. Then we got 2020. Does anybody remember that? Everything shut down. Everything went into chaos and a world of unknown. Like what is going on? What is happening? Schools are shut down. You can't go anywhere. You have to stay 6 feet apart. But also we're social distancing, which also what a misnomer. Like, why are we socially distancing? Aren't we physically distancing? Aren't we physically supposed to be 6 feet apart? We should be socially connecting, not
Yeah,
socially distancing,
yeah,
right? If there's some contagious problem, maybe a physical distance or a physical barrier would be the message,
right.
right? We need social connection, not
Yes,
distance. So
right.
everything got turned upside down. And I had been thinking about Dungeons and Dragons and seeing how, man, these kids love it. And I just was meeting more kids who they were playing D&D. They were like, I love Dungeons and Dragons. I'm leveling up. They're into Minecraft. They're into Zelda. They're into anime is another big one. And they
Yep,
see themselves like the hero. They're like the protagonist, the main character in the story. Like, I'm like One Punch Man. Like, I'm so strong. It's incredible. I'm working out and leveling up just like the hero in the
Yeah.
story. It's like, well, guess what? You are the hero in the story.
Mhm.
So that's when I created live action fitness and merged these two ideas together. So it's personal training combined with Dungeons and Dragons,
Awesome.
right? So that's the big story there about how we got.
Yeah. I mean, it's combined with so much more. Like, based on your background, it's so much more than just Dungeons and Dragons. It's full child development. It's how their brain works, and you're putting it in a experience that they can just succeed. And you're not just
Mhm.
handing them things, you're having them work for it in a way that their brain understands to work for it. Therefore, then developing the life skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can
Exactly.
succeed at life so they can handle the challenges and issues and things that come up and be able to get through it successfully. Not
Yep.
just, oh, let me muddle my way through, but
Yeah.
let me
And this is the
come
way.
out a victor.
Yeah. And now through the
Awesome.
experience that you have from live action fitness, you feel more comfortable with yourself,
Yeah.
right? You have that new self image. And now you start realizing, you start thinking about the long term,
Mhm.
right? I start giving kids gold coins that they earn, which their character has in their wallet. It's like having a personal bank account. You should see these kids, even on the younger side, you're like, oh, I'm going to save my money for something big. I'm going to save it for something special,
Oh, yeah.
right? It's delayed gratification. They've
Right.
got long term thinking. They've got grit. They realize, wow, this gets tough, but wait a minute, I'm going to come back. I'm going to keep going.
And there's
So
so
they
many
become
things,
more resilient.
right? There's so many things in this world anymore that don't teach those things. Nobody's teaching those foundational things that you need in order to be successful in life. Even if success doesn't equal lots of money, whatever your version of success, you still need those life skills. And there's nothing teaching it, which is why you're having these generations that are so deep in debt and are those factory workers. I'll
Yeah.
clock in at 9. I'll be a robot at my desk all day. I'll clock out at 5. I'll go and zone out to life and not actually have any of that social connection and not really add much to life, to where you're teaching these kids to actually truly live and be successful, whatever they choose, even if it's a 9 to 5 or whatever, but like to actually have vibrancy in their life.
Yeah. That's well said. You're choosing your own path, right?
Yeah.
You're on your own journey, for each of these kids. So it puts them in the driver's seat,
Yeah.
like go
There's
where
not
you
much
want to
out
go.
Yeah, there's not much out there teaching that.
Yeah. And, kids these days, like you said, stuck in their own world and not connecting, playing a lot of video games. That's
Yeah.
another big thing that we're dealing with. And that's sort of a simulation, of course, when you're playing this video game. Oh, you're having fun and you're the hero, but like you're not actually getting stronger. You're not
Yeah.
actually gaining experience. Like if playing video games like was, leveling you up and building your confidence, like we wouldn't
Oh,
have a
yep.
massive struggle and problem with the whole next generation of kids. We wouldn't have another book recommendation, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. Why is anxiety through the roof? Well, playing more video games and being on social media and being fed by an algorithm, I don't think that's the solution, right? Dare I say that might even be one of the obstacles,
Oh, I would completely
right?
agree with you. I mean, it's the same as us adults zoning out to social media or
Yeah.
anything. We're doing something, but we're not actually doing anything. We're secluding ourselves and just zoning out to a different world. And like I understand the difference between, like, there's the difference with imagination and
Mhm.
using that in a way to play and to build other skills, but we're not even accessing imagination anymore. It's just a total let me zone out so that I don't have to deal with the world around me. I'm gonna just zone.
Now, exactly. That's a good point. You're zoning out, like watching TV and playing video games or just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Your brain is actually getting deactivated.
Yeah.
You're using your brain less. This game gets you using your brain and your mind more, which is why you actually learn those skills and get the experiences, so you're actually leveling up and getting engaged. It's night and day. It's absolutely night and day.